Ever rolled out a campaign on Dynamics 365, then waited days just to find out if anyone noticed? Today, I'll show you how to connect D365 to Microsoft Fabric and get real-time feedback. You'll see exactly which email, web, and sales touchpoints are live inside your dashboard, all as it happens, ready to replace those stale weekly marketing reports with data you can actually use this afternoon. Why your marketing data is always late and costing you. If you've ever wondered why your Dynamics 365 campaign analytics always look dated by the time you read them, you're not alone. Here's a pretty typical story. Marketing spends weeks planning and building a new promo campaign. Day one, everything goes live. Emails land, ads run, the website lights up. The energy in those first few hours is real. But by the time any numbers show up in your inbox, it's often days later. Maybe it's a beautiful PowerPoint deck, complete with click rates and form submissions, or maybe it's just a CSV dumped from D365. Either way, the moment's already gone. The customers you wanted to reach have made their decision. Worse, someone's probably spent more money pushing budget into a segment that went cold while everyone stared at last week's numbers. That's the reality for most marketing teams still living inside Dynamics 365. One client I worked with had what looked like a solid digital promo. Nurture emails, personalized landing pages, even a chatbot greeting visitors pulled straight from CRM. On paper, it looked great. In reality, by the time their weekly dashboard landed every Tuesday morning, the only people looking at the numbers were the execs asking why no one was fixing the dip in conversions last Thursday. The campaign team was left piecing together clues from scattered Excel exports. Nobody could say for sure when engagement dropped or which message flopped. Decisions happened, but they happened late, usually after the audience had moved on. Industry research backs this up. According to recent marketing ops studies, teams lose up to 30% of campaign ROI just because their analytics are stale. When the numbers lag, opportunities disappear. The finance group starts questioning the ad spend that got signed off without real proof of lift. Marketers are left revising budgets and trying to justify the next campaign with a patchwork of best guesses instead of solid numbers. Outdated insights don't just slow you down, they cost you. Imagine running a campaign for a holiday sale only to see your key customer segments react 2 days after the fact, long after the competition has grabbed their attention and wallets. Now, why does this keep happening, even with Dynamics 365 sitting at the center of your stack? Here's the culprit: data fragmentation. Think about how scattered your touch points are. Some results land in the D365 marketing module. Others get siphoned off to the sales team's dashboards. Web tracking lives in another tool. Email responses, ad clicks, and customer service tickets each find a home on a different tab, or, if you're lucky, in somebody's inbox as a spreadsheet attachment. On top of that, traditional reporting inside D365 hasn't exactly kept up with the way marketers want to move. Batch exports are the classic bottleneck. Data gets collected throughout the day, but nobody sees a clean export until someone schedules it overnight, or worse, does it manually. The data goes from email platform to D365, gets transformed a couple more times in Excel, and sometimes even takes a detour through someone's analytics folder before it hits your report. By then, the event's not just in your rearview mirror, it's a speck in the distance. It's not just about the hours wasted waiting for files or fixing broken macros. It's about systems that were never built to share information freely. You end up with what's supposed to be a central view, but really it's just a reconstructed version whose accuracy depends on how awake your analyst was when they mashed save A's on a Friday afternoon. There's a catch-22 for a lot of teams here. The analytics promise of Dynamics 365 is centralization. You're told everything's in one modern cloud platform. But if your data still shows up days late because each source waits in line behind manual processes or IT backlogs, you're making decisions on a moving target. Fragmented data leads to conflicting stories. The web team says their page is performing, but the email team claims their campaign drove traffic. Sales logs say lead quality is poor, but marketing says the volume is high. Nobody fully trusts the story, and nobody can respond fast enough to steer the campaign before it strays off course. What if it didn't have to work that way? Picture seeing your touch points updated every few minutes, the story playing out live as customers open emails, click through landing pages, and fill out demo requests. No more guessing at the keepers or the duds. No more staring at last week's highlights and hoping they'll help you fix this week's miss. You'd catch stagnating segments before the budget's blown or see which creative hooks actually cut through the noise. Most teams are still stuck with stale, fragmented analytics, but it's no longer a tech limitation. It's just legacy thinking and process that keeps them there. With the right tools, seeing campaign performance as it happens is possible and a lot more attainable than it sounds. So if traditional analytics leave you constantly chasing the past, what does real-time marketing insight actually look like? And when it comes to Dynamics 365, which customer signals make the cut for dashboards you'll actually use? The hidden gold mine, which D365 customer insights data actually matters. If you've ever opened up the Dynamics 365 Analytics module and been hit with 10 pages of numbers, not all data is created equal. It's easy to assume every customer touchpoint matters, but the reality is most of what we collect is just noise. D365 is relentless about logging activity, every click, every email open, each time someone scrolls a page or signs up for a webinar. On the surface, this sounds like a marketer's dream. In practice, it creates a haystack so thick that tracking down the valuable needles, the signals that actually drive your campaigns forward, becomes a full-time job. Let's talk about what this looks like in the real world. Say your team kicks off a product launch with some fanfare. You set up drip emails, targeted invites, and track every web session from your campaign links. Now, fast forward to the first reporting session. The dashboard lights up with email opens, 100 click-throughs, registrations climbing. But then you notice buried underneath all that, there's also a mountain of generic web activity, of folks who hit your landing page for 2 seconds, then bounced. People who opened the email and promptly deleted it, maybe a batch of bot signups from a suspicious location. Your dashboard doesn't care. It serves it all up row after row until it becomes a blur. The reality is, executives and campaign teams aren't looking for a fire hose of raw data. They want to know what's actually moving the needle. Faced with this avalanche, I've seen more than a few marketing managers just scroll past the exports, trying to guess what matters. Are repeated visits from the same user important? Did that form submission come from a real lead, or was it just someone bored at lunch? This is when you realize collecting data is easy, finding meaning is hard. So what do the experts look for when they actually want to make decisions in real time? It always comes back to intent. Opens and visits are a start, but engagement matters a lot more. An opened email is a sign of interest at best, or just a quick swipe through spam. Clicks, more promising, but still not a guarantee that someone's moving closer to making a decision. Where the valuable signals really show up are in actions that demonstrate real intent. Think about users who move through your site in a pattern, landing page, feature page, then the pricing sheet, or the ones who come back multiple times in a week, not just once. Form fills for demo requests, reported issues that get tagged to an account, or repeated engagement with key messages. These are touch points that don't just talk, they shout. There's a reason seasoned marketing ops folks call out vanity metrics as a trap. Vanity metrics are everywhere. Email sent counts, basic open rates, impressions. These numbers look impressive in meetings, but they rarely tell you much about who's actually progressing down the sales funnel. High email volume is just noise if almost nobody clicks through. By contrast, an uptick in demo requests or multi-page visit sessions reveals prospects who are actually considering your offer. If you're tracking sales updates like a new opportunity stage or closed deal, that's gold when overlaid on campaign data. Suddenly you see not just who's looking, but who's buying. Tying the right data points to specific campaign goals is key. When you look at lead scoring in D365, for example, it's tempting to assign points for every touch. But that doesn't help when your execs need to see funnel progression at a glance. Instead, focus on high-value interactions, website paths that mirror your ideal journey, forms that show conversion, and sales updates that reflect real revenue movement. This approach turns your raw signals into a story. Customer journey maps become clearer, and you start spotting the actual levers you need to pull to move leads through the funnel. Picture a dashboard that doesn't try to visualize everything, but instead strips away the clutter. Imagine seeing only what matters. Users who didn't just open an email but clicked and then filled out a registration, accounts that surfaced in sales updates within a day of an ad view, high-frequency visits from previously cold leads. This isn't just wishful thinking, it's exactly what happens when you curate D365 data with intent-driven filters. Instead of being overwhelmed with a dozen charts and meaningless counts, executives get a dashboard that frames the story. Here's what matters today, this is where action is needed, and these are the early signals of campaign momentum. Getting to this point takes discipline. It means pushing back against the urge to show everything just because you can. Instead, you identify the foundation, the signals that your dashboard is actually built on, and the context leaders use to make calls. Once you know where to focus, D365 stops being a dumping ground for noise. Real customer insight is finally possible, and everyone from analysts to VPs can spend less time hunting for answers and more time acting on them. But knowing what to track is only one part of the puzzle. Next, you have to move that curated high-value data out of D365 and into Microsoft Fabric without losing its context, speed, or impact. That's where things get interesting. Streaming D365 to Fabric, the real-time data flow blueprint. If you've ever been the person waiting on that single final CSV file to power the weekly campaign dashboard, you know the pain. The whole process turns into a parade of manual tasks. Log into D365, export the marketing table, triple check the filters to make sure you aren't missing anything, then send the file halfway across the organization so someone else can actually use it. By the time you even think about uploading it into Power BI, you're already behind. Sometimes all it takes is an analyst taking a day off or a hiccup in the export job for the dashboard story to freeze mid-sentences. This isn't just a workflow inconvenience. One missed export and your exec team is making decisions on week-old numbers. It gets even more frustrating when you're chasing multiple sources, each with their own quirks and timing, siloed in the deepest corners of D365, sales, or another platform entirely. Even with scheduled batch jobs, there's always a lag. Nightly, perhaps, if you're lucky, but more often it's some clunky process running at odd hours, followed by a hope and pray moment that nothing broke. People end up babysitting these jobs or creating backup just in case CSVs. And let's be honest, the only real-time thing about that sort of workflow is the anxiety over whether this week's numbers will show up intact. Sound familiar? Most dashboards just regurgitate whatever the last export managed to catch, making it impossible to spot sudden spikes or drops until the window of opportunity has already slammed shut. But what if you could cut all of that duct tape out and plug D365 into a system that delivers live customer signals straight to the dashboard? This is where Microsoft Fabric steps in, specifically with data factory pipelines and Synapse real-time analytics. Instead of collecting your data into holding pens overnight, you stream it almost as soon as it's created. Email events, web visits, sales updates, they come through as a river, not a mail truck dropping off one big package after hours of delays. Here's how you actually make it work step by step. You start by setting up a data export routine from D365. If you're using the marketing, sales, or customer insights modules, you can wire them up to Azure Data Lake or Event Hub. Azure Data Lake is the go-to for large batch data or ongoing exports. With Event Hub, you can get real-time event-based data the second it happens. This export isn't just a dump, it's a structured flow prepped for integration. Once the D365 data hits Azure, it's ingested by Fabric's data factory pipelines. Here you get to decide which tables and which fields actually matter, tying back to those intent-driven customer signals instead of grabbing every last field. The next piece is the mapping stage. D365's data isn't always what you expect. Field labels might be inconsistent. Think first name in one export, if name in another. Key values could be missing, and sometimes the so-called interactions column is just a tangle of system-generated events that don't belong on a decision maker's radar. By connecting the data feed to the pipework in Fabric, you can build a normalization process. Sometimes you have to create lookup tables just to make sense of account IDs or stitch together a customer journey that crosses marketing and sales. Other times you identify records that are clearly junk, like rows where someone opened 100 emails in 10 seconds, which is almost always a bot or system error. But sending raw data, even in real time, isn't enough. This is where Fabric's transformation layer makes the difference. The data gets cleansed, irrelevant fields stripped, duplicate records merged, and those known bad entries flagged before they ever reach your dashboard. Enrichment happens here too. You might want to bring in external sources, like web analytics or event attendance records, to round out your customer view. At this stage, you model the data, creating calculated fields such as session duration or lead score, ensuring every metric has business meaning. The result isn't just a sprawling database, it's a stream of focused, decision-ready information. Take a real campaign scenario. You want your dashboard to show all email clicks, key web engagement, and every change in sales status nearly as fast as those interactions occur. You configure the pipeline in Data Factory so that marketing events in D365 automatically trigger updates through Event Hub. Each event flows into Fabric, where it gets sorted and enhanced in a couple of seconds. Sales status changes, like an opportunity moving from in progress to won, are piped in and matched to web and email histories instantly. The dashboard updates on the fly. Suddenly, spotting patterns like a surge in demo requests after a specific campaign takes minutes, not days. You move from reactive to proactive just by building a smarter stream. With the streaming side sorted, you finally have data that moves at the speed of your customers. No more batch delays, no more operational hiccups when someone's out sick or a script fails overnight. You can see campaign impact unfold in the moment and actually do something about it while it still matters. Of course, all of this streaming capability is only the first half. The real test is whether your dashboards can translate that live feed into answers your teams need without drowning everyone in endless charts. That's where the dashboard strategy comes in, how you actually put all of this real-time power to use. Dashboards that actually matter, turning data streams into real-time decisions. Let's be honest, just having a real-time dashboard doesn't mean anyone's actually getting answers. I've seen plenty of setups where every piece of data flows in fast, but the dashboard still can't answer a basic question like, is our campaign working? That's where the classic mistake comes in. People cram the screen with every chart they can pull from Dynamics 365, thinking more is better. Before long, the homepage is a jungle of line graphs, one for open rates, another for pipeline updates, a lonely bar chart showing case resolution times. It's impressive the first time you load it, but when leadership asks what's driving revenue right now, all those visuals just become white noise. Executives definitely notice this clutter, even if they don't say it out loud. Most of them aren't digging through tabs. They want the story on one screen, plain and simple. A clear line from marketing engagement to pipeline movement and customer outcomes. The frustration hits when nobody can show how this week's demo requests are influencing pipeline progression or which channel actually closed the sales gap. Instead, you get 3, maybe 4 separate dashboards, one for marketing, one for sales, and another for support. There's a missing thread. People are left stitching together key points by flipping between browser tabs, all while hoping they're not missing a buried insight. In practice, the questions stay the same. Which segments are moving? What's lagging? Are we actually turning engagement into revenue or just tracking screens full of movement without momentum? Unified real-time dashboards aren't just about feeding Fabric a constant stream of events. The magic happens when Power BI pulls everything together in a single place. With Fabric's deep Power BI integration, you finally get a workspace where email clicks, web journeys, and sales outcomes are stitched together automatically. Instead of toggling between platforms, your team can actually see in one view the direct line from a customer's first click to final deal. Not just did the campaign attract attention, but how many of those contacts turned into leads and did we close the loop with sales? You don't even have to wait for weekly syncs. Metrics update as fast as the clicks roll in. Now, let's talk about what makes a live dashboard actually useful day to day. You start with clarity. The best dashboards don't bury you in data just because they can. They highlight the customer journey. A funnel chart showing progression from first response to active opportunity with conversion rates that tick up or down as the day goes on. Every number is tied to a real campaign goal. If average case resolution time spikes, you see it right away, not buried below a dozen marketing metrics, but front and center, where customer service and marketing can both act. Health scores for each channel, email, web, and sales, let you spot weak links before your budget drains away. There's power in seeing decisions unfold in real time. Take a campaign where you're trying to break into a new market segment. On day 1, web engagement looks solid. By the afternoon of day 2, the dashboard shows a sudden dip in page visits from your highest value segment. The old reporting model would catch this a week later when the campaign's nearly over. But now, someone in marketing can catch it the same afternoon and pivot. Maybe they swap out a creative, launch a targeted follow-up, or adjust ad spend. Suddenly, you're not reacting to last week's disaster. You're steering the ship as the weather changes, minimizing wasted impressions before they become a line item in the next budget review. Those little course corrections add up, especially when your live metrics include things like conversion rate by channel and pipeline velocity. Sales leaders start to see which leads aren't just active, but are actually moving quickly toward the closes. Support teams can flag cases where resolution speed drops, giving customer success a shot at saving the account. When these metrics live in one place and update as fast as interaction happens, everyone gets the signal when something needs attention. It's the difference between nice to know and information that changes what your teams do today. Look at what happened with one team running a multi-touch awareness campaign. They'd always tracked clicks and views, but it wasn't until everything flowed live from D365 into Fabric and Power BI that they noticed a specific segment dropping off by the second day. Without real-time insight, that segment would have soaked up spend for another week with little return. This time, they paused targeting on that audience and shifted resources to the groups showing steady funnel progression. By the end of the quarter, ad waste was down sharply. Marketing spend was finally working where it counted, all because the dashboard gave them proof, not just a hunch. This is the real upside. When your dashboards aren't stuck in yesterday's news, but actually trigger action, your team isn't just reporting on the campaign, they're driving its success. Everyone starts spending less time cobbling reports together and more time optimizing in the moment. The next question your team should be thinking about: what does it mean long term when every campaign and customer touch is visible and actionable from the start? The point isn't just speeding up your data feeds, it's changing how your campaigns hit the market. Most dashboards still build a picture after the fact, when it's too late to shift spend or fix messaging. The question you need to ask is simple. Does your current process actually help your team make real decisions, or just add another unread report to the pile? Start with your existing touchpoints. Map how long it takes for a customer click to hit your dashboard. The sooner you can turn those signals into decisions, the sooner your campaigns start working while opportunities still on the table.